What if I told you that immigrant families are coming here to the U.S. and not only are they achieving the American dream, but they're achieving it faster than we ever have done, because they're doing it in a different way. So between now and the rest of the day, I'm going to be recording some information for you guys about how immigrant families are achieving the American dream, and how, as Americans, we might want to rethink how we define success. And by the way, for those of you who think you have to live, work, and retire in the U.S., there's no leaving. Well, those of you who think that, I have this to say. There is absolutely nothing wrong with chasing your dreams abroad, okay? Now let's get into this video. Well, as you can see, I finally made it to work. And guess what? Now it's time to leave. It's dark outside. I spent the whole day here, but I was nonstop busy and couldn't film the rest of this video. So I'm doing it now. Let's start with the basics. What is the American dream? Because originally it was this idea of freedom, opportunity, and building a better life. But over time, it's come to mean owning a home, having a career, and being financially secure for your family. But here's the reality. Because for many Americans, this dream feels more like a fantasy. Because the average home is way over $400,000, and wages haven't kept up with inflation. So instead of thriving, people are just surviving. They're living paycheck to paycheck, stuck in a vicious cycle where they're drowning in debt. And that cycle is really hard to break, especially when you have medical bills piling up, like I do, and when other crazy, exasperating things happen, like this. The other night, I'm on my way home from work. Some ambulance chaser ran into my car so he could run behind an ambulance and avoid the bumper-to-bumper traffic we ran. Well, of course, he sped off, and I was like, really? Did this just happen? Well, I did report it, but where I live, the car insurance, well, any type of insurance really, but especially car insurance laws are bonkers. They find any reason at all to raise your insurance. So we'll see. Okay, where was I? So I wanted to tell you about a patient of mine that I had a few years ago, and we're going to call him Felipe. He is a first-generation college grad in his family, super motivated. He went to the University of Denver, which is a big deal for him and his family. But in order to make it happen, he had to take out both federal and private student loans. Now here's where it gets crazy, because Felipe's been paying on these student loans religiously for the past 6 years. He's already shelled out like well over $9,000 just on his private loan. But instead of seeing the balance go down, it actually went up. Yeah, because his original balance of $11,000 grew to $14,000 just because of interest. And no one is advising him to make 2 payments per month and have one go to just the interest payments each time. But can I tell you a secret? Most people don't do that, folks. If they did, the government wouldn't be trying to help us alleviate the student loan debt. Okay, that's another topic for another channel. But can you imagine? He's out here working just as hard as he can, trying to do everything right, and still feels stuck. I remember the day he came in to see me, and he told me that he's starting to wonder, and I'm going to quote him. He said, he wonders if the American dream is even possible. At the time when he told me, I felt bad for him, but I didn't feel like, oh yeah, man, you're right, or this is so tragic, or I didn't think all that, kind of just listened to him, and it kind of just went past me, But after a number of years now, I started really thinking about it, and then I was like, wow, you know what? I'm hearing more and more stories like this, and something has to change. I have to change, because if the system's not going to change, I got to do something different, right? So this one's just a scenario, because imagine there's this couple, right? Both in their late 20s. She's a nurse, he's in IT, they're both working full-time solid jobs, and they've got this dream of buying their first home. But it feels impossible because of all the stuff they're juggling. They've got student loans to pay off, car loans, and we're not talking new cars, we're talking certified used cars, just something reliable, but yet still a car payment. And of course, all the regular living expenses like groceries and bills. And they've even made a budget and cut out all the fun stuff. But it still never feels like enough. When they think they're finally making progress, something always pops up, like a medical bill or a car repair. And by the way, why is it that when something major happens to the car, it never seems to be covered under that vehicle train warranty that you pay into at the beginning? I'm just saying. So for this couple, every time they swim a few strokes ahead, it seems like someone comes along and just laughs and pushes them underwater, and when they finally do emerge, they're gasping for breath, and they're back to square one again. It's so frustrating for them because they're working hard. So it's not like they're not putting the effort in, but they just don't see how they'll ever save enough for a down payment on a home. Now here's the part where it gets interesting. Immigrant families come to the U.S. and approach the American dream completely differently. First of all, they don't rely on one paycheck or one person to make it happen. They're working as a team. And what I'm about to tell you, I've heard numerous times over the course of years, and not just once. This next story comes from a former patient of mine also. This was a Spanish family who came to the U.S., and they all lived in one house. Parents, kids, cousins, you name it, all the adults worked. And every year, when they got their tax returns, they pooled the money to put a down payment on a house for one family member. And they repeated this until every single family eventually had their own home. I mean, how amazing is that? Now check this out. When my son was growing up, we lived in an area where the majority of the population were from Korea. Really nice area. But when I tell you that the inside of their homes, they made use of every single freaking space for a mattress to be laid on the floor for a relative. I'm talking every single corner was occupied with a mattress. In the living room, upstairs, downstairs, you name it, there was a mattress there for people to sleep. And it would last that way for a few years. And then we'd go back to visit. Well, because at the time, my son wouldn't even notice because he was a kid. But when I went back to visit, I noticed the mattresses had gone. All the people that were there over those years had moved out, except for the core family who actually owned the home. And next thing you know, you hear that the other people or relatives who had been staying there on the floor on those mattresses had gone on to do bigger and better things like owning their own business or their own home. I mean, think about that. So they weren't just chasing the American dream. They were achieving it together. Now that's the difference. I've also heard stories of families opening small businesses together, whether it's a restaurant, a grocery store, or even a cleaning service. Everyone pitches in and they build the business, and eventually they expand or open new locations. Now that is generational wealth in the making. Now let's compare. Immigrant families often focus on collective success, while many Americans are locked into an individualistic mindset. Immigrant families work together. They pool their resources and share expenses. This allows them to save faster, invest sooner, and achieve financial milestones more efficiently. Many Americans feel pressured to do it all alone. They get the job, they pay the bills, buy the house, all without much support. Now let's be honest, because one paycheck, especially from a 9-to-5, can only go so far. If you add in student loans, childcare costs, rent, and mortgages, it's no wonder that many Americans feel so stuck. So if you haven't learned it yet, what can we take away from this? Here are a few lessons that I've learned at least. Instead of trying to outdo each other, work together. Whether it's family, friends, or community, pooling resources can accelerate your progress. Immigrant families often accept short-term discomfort, like sharing a home, to achieve long-term goals. It's about focusing on the bigger picture. Everything from pooling tax refunds to opening family businesses is done with a clear plan in mind. There's power in intentionality. Okay, now let's flip the script. Because just like people from overseas come to America to achieve the American dream, there's nothing wrong with Americans moving abroad to chase their dreams. I mean, think about it. The cost of living in countries like Spain, Portugal, or Thailand is often much lower than in the US. You can own a beautiful home, live comfortably, and even start your own business, all without the financial stress that comes with staying stateside. I recently met someone who moved to Mexico, bought a gorgeous home for a fraction of what it would cost here in the US, and started an online business. Let me tell you, she's living her dream life and saving more money than she ever could back home. I'm a part of different groups where people are retiring in Portugal. They're retiring early because their savings stretch so much further. I mean, imagine lying on the beach, enjoying a slower pace of life and still having money left over to travel. Now, here's my key point. You're still American, no matter where you live. And if moving abroad allows you to live the life you've always dreamed of, that's still your version of the American dream. It's about redefining success on your own terms, not by someone else's standards. So whether you're inspired by the group strategies of immigrant families or the idea of chasing your dream abroad, here are a few steps to start redefining your own dream. What's most important to you? Financial freedom, travel, family, or is it something else? Who can you collaborate with? Whether it's family or friends, find people who share your goals. Look into digital nomad visas, cost of living comparisons, and ways to transition into remote work. Now, whether it's saving money, pooling resources, or exploring overseas options, don't just dream, start doing. The bottom line is this: the American dream does not have to look the same for everyone. Now, whether you're working as a group to achieve it here or moving abroad to live your best life, the key is to define success for yourself. So what's your dream? Is it buying a home, traveling the world, or finding freedom from the 9-to-5 grind? Let me know in the comments, and let's inspire each other to chase those dreams. Now, if this video sparked something in you, hit the subscribe button, share it with a friend, and let's keep rising together. Until next time, together we rise, together we thrive. And let's get out of here.